Now by Eylon Levy, spokesperson for the Israeli government and veteran of the Israeli Defence Forces. Welcome to you. Thanks very much for being with us. We'll talk more about the Jordanian field hospital shortly. First of all, I want to ask you specifically what's happening at the Al-Shifa hospital, where the IDF says that there is an operation going on, a targeted operation. We've heard from eyewitnesses saying there's shooting going on all around the hospital and inside, and there's bulldozers outside. Can you tell us exactly what is happening there?
I can't comment on specific operational matters of what is a very fast-changing scene, but the IDF has been operating inside the hospital above the Shifa terror complex. You know, for a month now we've been warning that Hamas hides underneath hospitals. That's a claim the European Union reaffirmed just a few days ago when it condemned Hamas's use of hospitals as human shields. We called on Hamas to surrender and come out with a white flag, stop abusing the hospital, stop exploiting international law by taking that protected site and jeopardizing its protected status by hiding its militants inside it. And now our forces have gone in. We've taken in media as well, including the BBC. And very soon, the full extent of Hamas's takeover of the Shifa hospital and the way that it has been exploiting the hospitals, the mosques, the schools and the homes of the Gaza Strip will be plain for all to see. We are exposing Hamas's war crimes as we systematically dismantle its terror state in response to the October 7th massacre.
How many militants have you found or killed there?
I can't comment on specific matters.
What can you tell us about the operation? Do you believe that you have found definitive proof that you can show to the world that there is a Hamas control centre in or underneath that hospital?
This is a fast-moving scene, and the forces on the ground who are there together with your reporters will present that evidence as soon as we can and give them access as soon as it is safe to do so.
In the meantime, you'll be all too well aware of the heavy criticism that Israel is coming under for operating in and around a hospital which should, under international law, be protected spaces. So there is, I'm sure you'll agree, some urgency for Israel to find and deliver this proof.
You're correct that under international law, hospitals must be protected. According to the Additional Protocol 1 of the Geneva Conventions, hospitals must not be used as bases for military activities. And to the extent that they are used as bases for military activities, that jeopardizes their protected status. Article 14.1 is very clear, 13.1 is very clear on that matter, that when they are used and abused for military purposes, we are entitled to give sufficient warning, and when that warning goes unheeded, the hospital's protected status lapses. That is exactly what has happened after a month in which we've been alerting the world to the abuse that Hamas has been making of hospitals across the Gaza Strip, after calling on it to surrender, after that warning has gone unheeded. And we know that we are fully acting within our obligations under international law, which does not give blanket immunity to terrorists just because they choose to hide under hospitals.
As you know, Hamas denies these claims and denies that those pictures that you've shown...
Hamas also denies that it holds civilian hostages, and we know that they're holding 240 hostages. You mentioned you had just earlier a clip with Osama Hamdan, a serial liar who just days ago said that Hamas isn't holding civilian hostages. They are. They're holding over 30 children, including babies, a 10-month-old baby. This is a terror organization that on October 7th burned, butchered, raped, tortured, mutilated, and then lied about it to the entire world. So really, the fact that Hamas denies it, this really doesn't need to be said.
Let me ask you specifically about the water and oxygen in the hospital. The director of the Al-Shifa hospital has said that Israeli troops have blown up the main water supply and that people are screaming for thirst, in his words. Do you know if that is the case?
Israel has been facilitating the provision of humanitarian aid into the hospital.
But has it blown up the main water supply to the Al-Shifa hospital?
I haven't heard that report, and that wouldn't sound correct. What I can say is, over the weekend, Israel hand-delivered 300 litres of fuel for the use of the generators in the hospital. Hamas stopped them using it. And the first thing we did as soon as we entered that compound, going in together with medical teams and together with Arabic speakers, we brought them into the operation. We didn't target them, as the BBC incorrectly reported earlier, is we went to be able to deliver humanitarian aid to the people inside the hospital, to give them incubators, to give them food, to give them medical supplies, because that is part of how we see the conduct of this moral campaign in what is obviously a very difficult circumstance, having to operate inside a hospital where Hamas has been trying to use people as human shields, because its whole strategy is based on hiding behind civilians. Because Hamas knows the moment it can't hide behind civilians, its own civilians or the hostages that it's holding of our own people, there's nothing to stop the full might of the Israeli army bringing the monsters who perpetrated the October 7th massacre to justice.
I do want to ask you about the hostages in a moment. First of all, I want to come to the Jordanian field hospital. I was talking to the Jordanian Deputy Prime Minister not that long ago, and he was saying that Israel struck a Jordanian field hospital inside Gaza, leading to tens being killed and wounded. Do you know anything about that? Is that the case? Have you got? Do you know whether or not that did happen yesterday?
I'm not familiar with that specific report, but as we move and dismantle Hamas's terror state, we've been providing evidence of the way that Hamas has been systematically abusing hospitals and ambulances and locating the launchers for its booby traps inside clinics and using its own ambulances to transport terrorists. So I don't know what happened in this specific case, but unfortunately we are fighting against an enemy that has spent the best part of 16 years deliberately embedding itself under civilian areas in order to make it difficult for our army to reach them. And we're continuing with our goal of trying to get civilians out of harm's way, peeling away those layers of human shields so we can go after the monsters who perpetrated the October 7th massacre. It's a war against Hamas, not the people of the Gaza Strip.
OK, your goal that sits alongside that is to try and free these 240 hostages taken on October the 7th. There are suggestions, there's been speculation over the past 24 hours or so that there is a deal possibly in the offing for around 50 women and children to be freed. It's very difficult, I'm sure, because you won't want to raise the hopes, perhaps wrongly, of those families of those who've been taken. What can you tell us about negotiations and your hopes that there could be some hostages freed in the not too distant future?
But the less we speak publicly about sensitive negotiations, the more likely we are to be able to bring these people home. Ultimately, human lives hang in the balance. The lives of children, babies who've been held by masked gunmen for 40 days now. We're doing everything we can to bring them home safe. We're demanding their immediate and unconditional return. We're demanding Red Cross access to them, which they have not had. But of course, these are sensitive discussions on issues of life and death, and I can't speculate about them on TV.
I want to talk to you just briefly about the situation inside Israel with regards to the political implications of all of this and how people are feeling about Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And I appreciate you're a government spokesperson, but you'll know that Yair Lapid, the opposition party leader, has called for him to resign. And there's a lot of frustration from not just the families of those hostage victims, but across the country that perhaps he's not the right man to be leading this country through this war and into the future. Do you feel that he is? Are you confident that Benjamin Netanyahu is the right man for this job?
First of all, people are right to ask very difficult questions about what happened on October 7th, and the Prime Minister has been clear that when this war is over and when it ends with Israel's total victory over Hamas, we will have those difficult discussions, and everyone, including the Prime Minister, will have to give full accountability for the failure of what happened on October 7th. But for now, we're focusing on this war, on winning this war, on destroying the monsters who perpetrated the October 7th massacre. I can tell you the whole of Israeli society is united around that. From left and right, people understand this war can only end with the total defeat of Hamas. That's what we're focusing on now. And we're focusing on the questions that are going to help us prosecute that war. And we'll open everything up when this war ends.
Eylon Levy, spokesperson for the Israeli government. Thank you.
Thank you.